Where you at?
Oh, yeah, I was just asking about the,
Okay, it's called Young Tree, 203.
oh, 203.
Yeah, 203. Oh, yeah, Young Tree, 203.
Okay. Alright.
have a camera that you're seeing right now. Right. So that's me. That's this laptop.
Oh, yeah. But by the grace.
Our lives are
Yeah, 'cause
easy. We're not running from bombs.
Yep, we could definitely be a part of all
Hey,
that.
how are you today?
Yeah, I'm gonna be all right. Oh, did you? Huh? Two. Test. Huh? Yeah. Two. Testing. 1, 2. Testing. You ain't 6:30 yet, is it?
Really? Oh, good. I know we're going to have a lot online. We ready?
Here come your pastor, your assistant pastors. I'll put you on front. Here come your assistant pastor. They got somebody open it up, so you can open up in prayer. I unlocked it.
Okay, let's start. Caprice, this is our assistant pastor. Dr. Brown. Yeah. For the first time today, yeah, this evening. Yeah.
With smart financial planning today. Here are some of the topics our service covers. 1. Personal money management. Keep your finances strong. 2. Pre-need trusts and wills. Protect your legacy. 3. Nursing care and health prep. Stay ready for the unexpected. 4. Funeral arrangements. Ease the burden on loved ones. 5. Home protection. Keep your biggest investment safe. Don't wait until it's too late. Take control now. Rosalind Sherrill is a financial advisor with Collins Law Group and McCoy Memorial Baptist Church. Call 323-854-0210 or email rosalind74@hotmail.com to start planning today. Your family's future starts with you.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to McCoy Memorial Baptist Church Financial Seminar. The time is 6:30 and we're starting on time. We are live. My name is Rosalind Sherrill, and I am a retired banker. Formerly worked at Union Bank 35 years and retired in 2016, and a year later joined Inglewood Park Cemetery. And I am a pre-need counselor. My passion is finance, teaching, Bible teaching, counseling singles, and event planning. And I'm also an author of a book, Teach Me How to Be Your Wife, geared towards singles, male and female. A year after I retired, I stumbled into pre-need with Inglewood Park Cemetery in 2017 after performing our first seminar here at the church. And it was through prayer that I accepted to be a pre-need counselor. Never in a gazillion years I ever thought I would be doing this, but it's truly been a blessing and a pleasure. So because this is a financial seminar, we're going to open up with about 5 minutes talking about finances. And we warmly welcome you. Next slide. So we're going to take a self-examination of our financial health. So with so much going on now with transactional, traditional cash that we primarily used to deal with in former years, and building our savings account through traditional banking. We have so many tools at our fingertips. We have digital currency, which is taking off. I don't think that will ever go back. We have cash still operating today. Credit card seem like the major player. Apple Pay and so many other vehicles, including online purchases through the internet. How we manage our finances through a smorgasbord of obligations as money flow through our fingertips. We have to slow down and really look at, take a self-examination. How we doing as we journey through this life? Because we don't want to live a life of Well, we can spend now and never pay later. A lot of Christians, believers, non-believers, we would be surprised how we manage our money. And so let's take a look at how we find out how we doing. The next slide. Do you know that you can order your credit report once a year for free from all three agencies at annualcreditreport.com. If you have a pencil, write it down, annualcreditreport.com. You want to order at least once a year your credit report. And with the way things are going on today, you don't know who will be lurking in your files or take control of it. So it's very important that you at least get the initial printout and lock it up, file it away. So when things hopefully, prayerfully don't go awry, you have a record. The next slide. With annualcreditreport.com, it is the only source of free credit reports authorized by federal law. And again, who knows how long that will last? But while you can, print that out as soon as you can. And next slide. It's going to ask you to fill out a form, and this is the important section. To fill out the form, pick out the reports you want. I suggest to select all three. Experian is the dominant credit agency, but you do want all three. The next is request to review your reports online, and you also have the option to print it out, which I suggest you do. Take your time at this section number 3 to fill it out, because it is designed to be difficult because of fraud. It's going to ask you some challenging questions. Next slide. Do you know your financial your financial reputation is very, very important to how you conduct your business. Your credit report is your financial reputation of how you manage your finances, and the results of it is reflected in your credit scores. A credit score is a 3-digit number, typically between 300 and 850. Hopefully, we don't have 300, hopefully. That represents your credit worthiness and likelihood you'll repay your debts, influencing loan terms and access to credit. In other words, it is a representation of a snapshot of your ability to handle your credit responsibility. Next slide. Do you know your credit score? Let's take a look. Now, hopefully most individuals at least fall in the center, 670 to 739. But with an excellent credit score, your options are almost unlimited. You get lower interest rates. The best of the loans, the best options, anything that costs large for less. The options are almost unlimited. Whereas 300 to 579 is very limited, and more than likely, the institution will ask you to put up some type of something to back it up. Probably depends on which. The question was, do the numbers keep changing? It probably depends on which credit agency. All right. Next slide. So our journey as we travel through this life is closely related to our financial health and our spiritual walk. You believe that? Which brings us to the most important protection that we can ever have is tithing. Tithing is a form of protection. It is a belief that all we have belongs to God, and you can never outgive Him. As we travel on this journey through life, we learn to depend, to trust God, and with all we have including our souls, which we will live with Him throughout eternity, and that's eternal life. Did that make sense? So if we trust the Lord with our soul, how much more should we with our finances? And our finances kind of keep us in check when we have that in order. And which brings us to the next. And I say that because I talk to so many individuals, especially believers, who are scared straight talking about pre-need. But we talk about death every single week when we talk about the Lord Savior Jesus Christ. And we ask, are you sure you saved? Or if you die right now, do you believe you're going to heaven? But then when you talk to the person one-on-one about pre-need, I don't want to talk about that right now. Pre-need is a form of a savings account for your homegoing celebration. It is preparing in advance for your party, your celebration. We party for birthdays, we party for weddings, we party, and when I say we party, we save money for those affairs with joy. But when it comes to pre-need, it's a different story. There's fear, and there is no fear in God, who we trust, depend, and believe that He is a keeper of our soul, right? So pre-need also guards against rising inflation. Do you know when we were children, my parents, next slide, my parents bought me and my brother's pre-need, set up our pre-needs when we were still at home. He bought all 5 for under $1,500 under a tree in front of a chapel. Do you know how much that costs today? And if you look closely, you might, let's see. I think that, let's go to the next slide. I think next slide. Page 9. It has pictures.
Yeah, it was on that. It's the next one after this.
Yeah, okay, let's go to the next one. There. If you look closely, you might see somebody you know. See how they're laughing, having a good time, even the families on the side of us. And everyone has pre-need. And I often hear, but I'm not trying to leave right now. I don't want to die right now. But when I tell you everyone, especially that middle picture, has pre-need, even a baby, all of us still alive. But the cost was so much less back then. And pre-need keeps up with inflation. And when I say that, is that when you invest in pre-need, because it is an investment, it does not, the cost remains the same, even if something were to occur 100 years from now, because some of us live to 100 years old and plus. I have a 102-year-old auntie. But her pre-need is the same, and she bought it many, many years ago. That cost will not change. That's the same way pre-need works. And so it is better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. Because once you need it, there are no discounts. There are no going back and forth with negotiations. It is pay up front, no matter who you are. Okay, next slide. Now, here we are. So the advantages: lower costs, discounts, locked-in price, monthly affordable payments, guards against inflation costs, protecting your loved ones, allow them to grieve without being inundated with unexpected expenses. And pre-need right now is zero financing for up to 84 months, the whole life of the loan. Now, the disadvantage is high costs, no discounts, must pay in full, pay current market costs, must make split decisions at the most vulnerable time, and family drama, because it all leads back to money. Life insurance policies oftentimes is not enough, and GoFundMe is 2% each transaction fee plus a 30-cent for each donation. And so, for some reason, a lot of our people think it's okay to have a GoFundMe and give a lump sum away, when that could have been used toward your pre-need. Next slide. So let's look at the cemetery real quick. The interment. So think about how you want to leave this life for a minute, how you want to be buried. Mausoleum in the wall, and the graves in the ground, or cremation. And let's not forget opening and closing. Opening and closing will hinder the whole process, but the nameplate can wait. You can pay on the nameplate anytime, but it must be taken care of, because who wants to live in a house without an address? And I shouldn't say live in a house, but reside. Your remains reside in a place and no one know you're there, right? So you have the option once you have made your selection, the following are your payment options. Either pay in full, and you can receive an additional 5% discount. You have a minimum of to 10% down, and I recommend 10% because it makes the monthly payment lower. Up to 84 months, no prepayment penalty, no credit check, and we work with your budget. Now let's look at the mortuary. Oftentimes, we have counselors in the field that will go out and sell the cemetery, but they don't mention the mortuary because they don't have the license. And I'm one of the few that have both. Mortuary is very important. And you said, well, how do I know if I have the mortuary? You know if you selected a casket. That's the clue. So the cemetery, you have a place to go, but the mortuary prepare you to go. It's like, where you going? There's a thing that we say in the cemetery, you're getting ready for the show for a place to go. So the show is the service. How are you going to get there? The transportation. Are you going to be escorted? The grooming, the casket, the flower. Do you want to have the service at the chapel or your church? The death certificates. And then once you've made your selections, there's no large monthly fee. Down payment, it just start with a regular monthly payment. Unlike the cemetery, it starts with an initial down payment. But the mortuary starts with an initial monthly payment. And in most cases, you must have both the mortuary and the cemetery. Next slide. So here's a picture of our latest development. It's called Cascade Gardens, Phase 4. Next slide. It's one of the newest locations in the cemetery and the largest mausoleum on the Western Hemisphere. Its capacity have tandems, which is double crypts, 1,410, single crypts, 515, lawn crypts in the ground, 775. Those are double. The tandems are double. So you double those numbers and the lawn crypts. The niches are 4,388. So as you can see, Inglewood Park Cemetery is not running out of space. I hear that a lot. In addition, they're still building through 2030. There are hidden spots in the cemetery you don't even know exist. And they're under development as we speak. Next slide. In this particular location, there is a special of lawn crypts. Currently, the special discount is $3,000 for the lawn crypts. Discount $3,000 for the tandems, which is a double crypt. A single is $1,500, and the niches discount is $2,000. A niche is, good question, is what is a niche? If you want to leave your ashes at the cemetery, which I recommend, your ashes are placed in an urn, and if you haven't seen it's like a bookcase with glass. Some are glass and some are made of marble stone or stone, and with engraving or inscription. And through the through the glass niches, it looked like, again, like a bookcase where you put your urn. You can add pictures, your favorite items, like I'm a pearl girl, so I would put pearls in there and a small picture of myself. So you don't have to pay for inscription with your name at the bottom. And the glass niches are my favorite. So that's what a niche is, and they come in various sizes. Next slide. And finally, Inglewood Park Cemetery owned 2 other cemeteries, Roosevelt and Park Lawn, and I service all 3. Next slide. Any questions?
As far as the mortuary, is there, any prepayment penalties on that?
The question is, as far as the mortuary, are there any prepaid penalty?
Yeah, like you were saying, there's no prepayment penalty on the property. Is there a prepayment penalty when you set up with the mortuary?
Is there a prepayment penalty set up on a mortuary? If you want to pay it off early, I believe you have to have, once it's set up and you have, and you made your payments for a year, maybe 2. I think it's 1 year, but I'll double check. There's no prepaid penalty. We just did it, and we did not get a prepayment penalty, but we had been paying for about a year and a half. So I think it's a year. Any other questions?
I think, not a question, but just a comment. You were talking about people don't want to pay, set up for their pre-need. And I think some people are superstitious. You know, when you start setting that up, you start thinking you're on your way out of here, you know, because you did mine, and I got all the way down to the last payment, and I was just sitting on that payment. In fact, it took Rod to tell me, man, go and pay that payment. You're not going nowhere. I was like, man, I don't want to pay this last payment. And next thing you know, I'm going to be using my plot by the lake.
We have Dr. Brown, who was saying that he did not want to make his last and final payment, and his plot is located in the center of the cemetery near the lake, and he procrastinated because he felt if he paid it off, something might happen. Superstitious. Do you trust God? Let's go back. Do you trust God? And like I said, we've had ours since we were children, but you know, as a child, you didn't know any better. But I look back, I am so thankful that our parents put that in place for us, and that all we had to take care of was the mortuary. And so that saved us a few $1,000s, right? And the reason why he did that, he was saying, your brothers, they were living, I'd just say they were partying hard, and he just wanted to make sure they were prepared. So that concludes my presentation, and the next time we have this, I want to talk about, maybe we'll touch on digital currency, and because it's not going anywhere, and then insurance, universal insurance, of a new way of banking, and where you can be your own bank.
In case you want to see a chat. You want to ask a
Okay.
question in the chat.
All right. Are there any questions online? And welcome to our online users. You could type it in chat before I turn it over. I have 5 minutes. Okay, I don't see anything. Okay, so we're going to move right along and open up with a testimonial video of our next speaker, Attorney Caprice L. Collins. And she's our trust attorney. I love her. And her group are so professional. They are wonderful. They take care of good business. And is it ready?
You name it, they have taken care of it for me. Excellent, excellent.
I feel that I have everything in order.
I've had a good experience with them. I've been with them for quite a while.
I just feel like family. I really do.
I love it.
Everyone at Collins Law Group is pleasant. They're very knowledgeable, very professional. So I've had a good experience.
It's been phenomenal, supportive and professional and patient and understanding.
Ms. Collins really takes care of you personally.
I've recommended all family and friends and even strangers needing anything regarding estate planning and such to Attorney Collins Law Firm. It's a professional organization, and I wouldn't recommend anybody but her.
It's like a burden off my shoulders. It's something that I don't have to worry about now, and it was easy and very complete.
I just feel like my family will be able to kind of handle things so that they're not, they've got some direction from me.
Certainly it has just relieved me a lot of, things on my mind in terms of securing, assets, for the heirs, my children, grandchildren, and to leave a living legacy.
Well, the educational information that she gave us, which is absolutely amazing. We had no idea how important a living trust was until we went to her seminar. So that really, really gave us some insight into what we needed to do to take care of our family.
My family, my children, my grandchildren are secure financially.
We need to make sure that what we've accumulated will go on to the children, and that's so important today.
She's definitely somebody we feel comfortable recommending to other people.
And we have already.
Friends.
Yeah.
Amen. Okay.
You name it, they have taken care of it for me.
As she comes, she's going to say a little about herself, and her video also tells more about her. Let's welcome my friend, colleague, Caprice L. Collins. Let's give her a hand.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I'm so happy that to be here this evening to address the church, and those are here in support of the effort that the church is making to educate its community, the people that matters to it. And for those of you who are here tonight, we're going to have some really special things that we're going to have for you as a result of you coming out. So I hope everyone here already has this package that I gave out, and can you please help yourself? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to not get it to one of the most important persons here, which is Dr. Brown. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk tonight about what every homeowner needs to know about wills and trust. Can I move it from this computer? Okay. All right, so I think we need to go back a slide. No, go back a slide. All right, let's start off where you were. I wanted to tell you a little bit about my background and where I came from and my family's history here. So I am definitely a homegrown girl. I'm a second generation Angelino. My family came out from Marietta, Georgia, way back in the early 1900s, and have been in Southern California ever since. And in fact, my family came from Marietta to really work in service. So I don't know if you know what that phrase means, but back in the day, we were primarily servants to people. So there were a lot of people in the Pasadena area, because Pasadena was a millionaire's enclave. People from the East came to winter in Pasadena. And my great-grandfather came here with his 7 children. And my grandfather was one of those. And he worked in service for years as a chauffeur. And then by the time my dad was born, of course, we were doing different things and had different ambitions. And so I have a long history here in Southern California. I'm proud to say that I still own some real estate that came from those original folks that got here through the South. Next slide. Well, actually go back to the other slide. So beyond being a homegrown girl, having family that came here over 100 years ago, I'm also a product of the Los Angeles Unified School District. I went to Audubon Junior High, Dorsey High School, very proud Dorsey Donna, went on to UC Irvine undergrad, and then on to Harvard Law School. And from there, coming back to Los Angeles, I decided to work in my community, and have been doing so now for 46 years. So over that period of time, I've been very, very lucky to have served my community for many, many years in this area of estate planning. And in order to be the very best I could be in this area, I have become a member of the American Academy of Estate Planning Attorneys. It is the most preeminent group of attorneys in the United States. We are required to perform our services at the very highest quality. And so we are required to do 3 times the amount of legal education that the state bar requires me to do per year to maintain this relationship, to maintain this position in our organization. We have people all over the United States, so it's great for my clients who may have properties in other parts of the U.S. that we can provide services everywhere that you might need it. And then further from that, I decided to become a trusted advisor. So if we can get that slide up on that, that would be helpful. And what does that mean? It means that I applied for and have been licensed in 3 other areas. I have been licensed as a financial advisor. That's a federal license. I have been licensed as a real estate broker by the state of California, and also as an insurance agent here in the state of California. And so as such, I'm not only able to provide my clients with legal services, but I can also counsel in other areas. And that's very valuable to my clients, that can happen, because, you know, when you come in for this kind of advice, you're coming in with those kinds of assets. You've got real estate most of the time, you have financial accounts, you have insurance. And so because I'm licensed in all those 3 areas, I'm able to give you good advice beyond the law. And I don't know if any more slides are going to come up. Yeah. All right. Ready for the next one. All right, so I invite everyone here today to come to our website. We have a great website, collinslawgroup.com. And on that website, you'll find a lot of video content. You just saw a video that we prepared for people to understand from the wonderful clients that we've served over the years, their opinions about our service. You'll find lots of great information, free reports. You'll find an entire free seminar that we have that is available through our website. It's on demand. So you go to our website, you go to events, you go to our on-demand webinar, and you can actually watch a full seminar. That's not what we're doing tonight, okay? We're not what we're doing tonight, but you can watch that full seminar online, and from watching that seminar, you're entitled to actually have a consult with me, a 30-minute consult with me. And I want just to bring to everybody's attention tonight this package that you have in front of you, that in that package, we're actually giving you lots of great information. The last sheet is about that on-demand webinar, but everyone here tonight is going to get a $500 discount for those of you who are in attendance. So the second page of this package has a very special gift, and you have to thank McCoy Memorial and your wonderful hostess with the mostest, Miss Rosalind Sherrill, for unveiling you of this evening. Because if not for my special relationship with her and this institution, you would not be being given that. So please show your appreciation when you can for what they did. Next slide. And for any seminars that we have, you can register online. So let's talk about the reality of what it's like to be Black in America. Number one, there is a very big wealth gap between Black and white households. While we make up 13.4% of the national population, we only have 4% of the total household wealth in the United States. And I think we all know why. Okay, that racial discrimination still exists, has existed since they took us off the boat back in 1619 to today. And we have to be strong, as we have shown our strength throughout 400 years, to make sure that our families are protected going forward. We're going to have new challenges in this administration that I think all of us recognize. But this is how we have always persevered. No matter what challenges we had, we have always overcome them and only become stronger as a result. So with that in mind, that we are way behind in wealth building, the white household average wealth is $983,000, the average wealth of a white person that lives in the United States, whereas our household wealth on average is only $142,000. So now I look at those people here in this room, and I think you're not in that group, by and large. You know why? Because you live in Southern California. And so because we live in Southern California, our household values are sometimes as much as 6 times a comparable home in some other part of the United States. So just by being here and owning real estate, you're going to be in a much better position financially, which really makes me feel so passionate about our responsibility to protect it. We have more than the average American, African American in this country, and we have to take a stand on protecting what we have for those people that we care about. Next slide. So if you learn nothing from me tonight, this is what I want you to take this away, and you can share it with your friends and family, and that each and every person here tonight has an estate plan. Now, we know Rosalind does because I prepared it for her, and she keeps it up to date. But there's only 2 options with everyone in this room tonight. You have either taken your time, your money, your respect for yourself and your family, and you have made a plan, or you haven't. That's it. There's only 2 choices here. And for those of you who have made a plan, I want to congratulate you. I want to celebrate you. I want you to spread that amongst your family. Let it not stop with you. Make it a family tradition. But for those of you who have not done anything, like our good reverend over here indicated, that some people wait to the last minute or have fear that if they plan that somehow tomorrow they're going to need it. There is a plan in existence for everyone who has not planned. It's a plan that the state of California has for everyone who fails to plan. Does anybody know what that's called? Probate. Next slide. The number one reason why people don't plan is this word right here, procrastination. Anybody know what that word means? Raise your hand if you know what the definition of procrastination is. Yes, Rosin answered it. Putting off until tomorrow what we know we need to be doing today. Not what we maybe, but we know deep down in our hearts this is a obligation we have to our family. And I want to really join in with Rosalind's advice because, having a funeral or having the services of someone dear that you lost is like planning for a wedding. Think about it. What do? You have to have a place for it, like she says. You have to buy the flowers. You have to make arrangements at the church. You have to make arrangements with the minister. You have to invite people in some form or fashion. But in the case of a wedding, we might have years to do that. And savings that we may have put aside for long term. How fast do we have to do that with a funeral? Within days of someone's death. All of that has to be done. So if you care about your family, then you want to make this process as easy as possible because there's no human being that's ever been on this planet who is not passed on. None. So we're all going in that direction. But are we going to be prepared? So please give serious, serious regard to what she shared with you tonight because I have been through many, many of these situations with my families. And I will tell you, it is mind-boggling when you've lost someone. You're in a state of grief. You can't even, figure out what clothes you're going to put on the next day. And then you have to arrange all of that and come up with the money too. So please don't make this a responsibility your family has to take on. And then I've heard from so many faith leaders about the appeals that people come to the church with. Can you help us out? Can you, help us with this or that? And instead, what the church should be receiving is not that kind of drama and trauma, but should be receiving a gift, really. This is where we have our last chance to give. So keep that in mind when we're making our plans. So I'm glad everybody here knows what procrastination is because one, time I was at a group like this and I asked that question. And a gentleman was in the back of the room, and he was waving his hand so enthusiastically when I asked, what is procrastination? So, of course, I called out to him, and he says, ma'am, that's the operation I had last week. No, procrastination has nothing to do with body parts. But it really will derail your plans when you keep putting things off. Next slide. So we're going to talk about myths today. We're going to talk about things that people believe, and we're going to find out if really those are the truth of the matter. So the number one myth here is if I have a will when I die, everything will work out just fine. Next slide. The reality is if all you have a will when you die, if that's the only document you have sent your family to probate. So whenever we have a will, it must be probated in our state. So the court has to examine it. They have to determine whether it was your signature. They have to determine whether you were of your right mind when you made it. Was someone prompting you to make this kind of a document for their benefit? All of those things must go through a court of law when all we have is a will. The other time when probate is absolutely required is when we have nothing, when we've done nothing. Then we must go through probate because of the fact that you've made no plans, and so the court then applies what it believes you would want to have happen. Why is probate necessary? Because it changes title to the assets that you have. So if you own a home in your name and you pass away, there's no other way that that property can actually be retitled or put in the name of your loved ones without a court process. And that is what probate does. It is a forum to resolve disputes. So everyone in your family will be sent notice of the probate. And whether you wanted them to be involved in your, affairs at a time in the future, well, by not doing anything, you made it a requirement. There will be payment of creditors, there will be appraisal and inventory of your assets, and then at the end of the day, there will be a distribution of your assets. And that is to our next of kin. So if we're a single person, our children are our next of kin. From there, our grandchildren are our next of kin. If we have no children or grandchildren, our parent is our next of kin. Our siblings are our next of kin. So depending upon the family that you leave behind, your estate will be distributed to those people, not in the manner you may have wanted, but just by relationship. That means your good could go to possible undesirables. Who are those people? People that are related to you, but who you never wanted to receive anything from you. But since you didn't leave any direction, that's what can happen. Next slide. The disadvantages of court process is that it is very expensive. In fact, the state of California has one of the most expensive processes in the nation. When I meet with my group of attorneys of the American Academy and we sit and talk amongst each other, I am, flabbergasted that some of these states will allow you to go down and file a document that's signed by one person, and it's over. It's over, and we're like, how's that possible? When in our state, it's very time consuming, can take now at least a year or more. There are probates that have been pending for 5 years. It promotes family drama because everyone comes out, to see what they might be able to get. It allows Medi-Cal to recover from our state. So, Medi-Cal is a state program that provides care and medical services to those people who do not have the ability to pay. And in our state, it is recoverable. It means that at the end of that person's life, whether it was in-home service or it was medications or medical procedure that Medi-Cal paid for, they will collect at your death. But if you have a trust, they aren't allowed to. Yeah. Not only will they recover for those kind of payments, but for the long-term care expenses that sometimes our family members receive. Next slide. Myth number 2 is a power of attorney will take care of all my problems if I become disabled. How many of you believe that? Raise your hand if you think it's a simple power of attorney will result in everything being taken care of. No one's raising their hand, so let's go to the truth of that. Next slide. No, the truth of that is that most likely, if you become incapacitated, your family may be required to go to court to become your conservator. Has anyone ever heard of a conservatorship? Raise your hand if you've heard of it. Have you heard good things about it? No, it's not something we would desire. Now, if we have a loved one, an elderly person perhaps, or even a younger person that's not able to take care of their own financial affairs, medical decision making, it's definitely better for someone to be responsible for them. And that's what happens. I mean, we had the case of Britney Spears right here in Los Angeles County, who was in a conservatorship for many years because of mental issues. Her father was her conservator. She recently got released from being a conservator in conservatorship. But the reality is that once you're in a conservatorship, most of the times you never get out of it. It's very expensive. On average, it costs $25,000 to go through a conservatorship here in Los Angeles County. Very expensive process. Next slide. So why aren't powers of attorney not honored? Well, basically because banks and financial institutions want to avoid lawsuits. I was just a part of a presentation a week ago that the Black Business Association of Los Angeles did along with Morgan Stanley. And I was very shocked to hear that Morgan Stanley will not honor a power of attorney that's more than a year old. They will not allow it to be used to control your account. Now, our belief that it's usually 3 years where banks start getting a little itchy when they see a power of attorney, a date on it. Why is that? Because, a lot of things can happen just in a 3-year period in terms of someone's capacity. Do they really want this person to be involved? Has there been changes in their lifestyle that they make them less likely to have that person involved? The main reason why banks and financial institutions don't want to honor old powers of attorney is because they get sued. Someone comes down with something, many times totally illegitimate, forged, or made, under the duress of someone. And then the banks honor it. They allow someone to take money out of an account, and then it turns out that person was a fraudster. So one of the things that you can use that are respected are trust. So trusts are respected by banks far more than powers of attorney. And that's one of the things that they will allow someone to exercise rather than a power of attorney. Or, worse yet for us, if we have nothing, they want court orders. They want you to go and start a conservatorship, start something that gives them a surety that they'll be protected in case of disagreements. Next slide. So what's the best way to avoid conservatorship is by having a living trust. Why? Because living trusts don't die. So even though it says living, it means it lives beyond your lifespan. It means that when you're no longer here, the trust is still in force, and the trust still has power. And even when you're here, the trust can be used to protect you from having to go to conservatorship. It allows family or friends chosen by you to handle your financial affairs. And it greatly limits elder abuse when you have something already prepared that protects you, and you've told those people in your life that you have prepared this and you want them involved. Do you know that the #1 fastest growing crime in the United States today is elder abuse? And there's many reasons why. #1, we have the biggest group of Americans ever that has been in the age of 60 plus, and that is the baby boomers. So you have millions of Americans who are liable to be violated through elder abuse. You have all these new kinds of transactions, as Ms. Sherrill mentioned, cryptocurrency, Apple Pay, this and that, things that allow people to be deceived in many instances. You have a high use of the internet, unfortunately. Unreliable individuals, fraudsters, thieves get on the internet and can cause people to actually lose their entire estate. I don't know if any of you have ever watched that movie called The Beekeeper. Anyone here watch that? Great film. If you haven't seen it, watch it. Felicia Rashad is one of the stars in The Beekeeper. Jason Statham, the one who was in The Transporter and all those other movies, is the hero, okay? Yeah, and he's really great in that movie. And so it's all about elder abuse. That's the whole core of the movie. So a good way to learn about it and be entertained at the same time. But when you have planned, when you have made it clear in written documents that have been notarized, witnessed, prepared by legal counsel, and your family has a relationship with them, then elder abuse is less likely to happen. Because at every turn when there are questions, you'll have someone to rely upon. Next slide. And we have a very, very special danger in our community. I am very closely aligned with Alzheimer's Association of Los Angeles. I just attended their luncheon 2 weeks ago in which they honored the African American representative for Alzheimer's LA. And one of the things, of course, she's an outreach professional. She has a degree in gerontology, and she goes amongst all kinds of institutions in our community trying to prepare us for what is really happening. We have a 300% increased risk of Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and other forms of dementia. And where the Alzheimer's Association is doing, of course, studies to try to determine what it is. It's not genetic, that's pretty much concluded, but it's more lifestyle. It's diet, it's exercise that unfortunately makes us much more prone for things like heart disease, diabetes, which has an effect upon our eventual cognition. So this is something we need to be on guard about. We need to be on guard with our elders. It really hurts me when I see someone who will come in or call me or tell me about an aunt or a grandmother or something, and their personality has changed. They've started getting kind of ornery or difficult, and a person will say, "Oh, well, that's just grandma." No, that may not just be grandma. That may be the beginning signs of dementia. And so it's very important that we be alert about this, that we do our best to stay healthy, and that we look out for those that are older and more prone to potentially this disease. Next slide. And then if you're a caregiver, be aware. So African American women are 3 times more likely to have Alzheimer's than white women. I'm sorry, go back please. I didn't get through that slide. And while we're, concerned about breast cancer, we will more likely get breast cancer, we'll get Alzheimer's than we will get breast cancer. So let's be realistic about what our risks are, and that the majority of caregivers in our community are women. 75 to 80% of all caregivers are women in our community. And so we need to make sure that, we take care of ourselves, that we take care of those that we care for, and that we realize that this is a high risk, that the more that we understand it, the more we can protect ourselves. Next slide. So we really want to reach out to the children that are protecting their parents. If you are currently caring for someone in your family, whether it's a daily thing, or it's weekly, or it's monthly, or you're sending money, or you're paying bills of that individual, please guide them to get a trust done. We are losing so much of our valuable legacy in Southern California by having parents and grandparents pass away with no planning at all. My family, my Collins family, as I mentioned to you, settled in Pasadena originally back in the early 1900s, and then went out into Altadena. My dad had a home in Altadena. My sister had a home in Altadena. And in 1980, 46% of the residents of Altadena were African American. And do you know what the percentage is today? Only 18% of Altadena is now African American. So you see how much we have lost in the last 40 years in that community alone. And we can see it right around us. Right around us. All you got to do is walk outside of this church and look around and see who lives in this community. And when I was growing up in Los Angeles, this was referred to as to the east side, if you know what I mean, and we were predominant on the east side of Los Angeles, and we are no longer predominant on the east side of Los Angeles. Now, did some white person come and steal these properties away from us? No, they did not. We sold them, or we lost them in some form of way, and I will tell you that a percentage of that was failure to plan. failure to protect that legacy of our grandparents. I still own my grandmother's property over on Holmes Avenue in Watts. I still own my mother's property on 4th Avenue in Los Angeles. And how would that take place? Is those women made a plan to keep those properties in our family. It is up to us to make sure we are helping our elders make these plans. We saw during the pandemic many younger people, even grandchildren, bring their family members to us to have their plans prepared. Next slide. Myth number 3, joint tenancy is the best way to hold title to my property. So, next slide. The truth is there is lots of problems with joint tenancy. And this is really the majority of married couples hold property in joint tenancy. Okay? The benefit of it is that at the death, remember what I said, the death of one joint tenant, the other joint tenant receives the interest that the other had in the property. Okay? That's really the only benefit of being in joint tenancy. There's a lot of detriment to being in joint tenancy, and one of them is you're really subject to all of your joint tenants' personal debts and creditors. Now, if we're in with our spouse, so we're kind of subject to that anyway under community property law in the state of California. But bad decisions that people might make, business decisions, failure to pay taxes, not being properly insured, getting in a traffic accident, all of those things can make us subject to their debt and will be on our property. So if you are a parent, never put your child's name on your real property, ever. Divorces. So if your child gets a divorce and they are on title to your property with you, their divorcing spouse has a half an interest in your property. Yeah. So people think, okay, I put my whomever, my child, my friend, my cousin, whomever, because I want them to have it when I die. That's not the way we actually provide for someone having something when we pass away. What you have done is you have given them 1/2 of an interest. And our parents say, well, no, I didn't mean that. I didn't mean they were going to own the property. Well, that's what happens. A joint tenant is an owner of your real estate along with you. And all of their bad life choices or unfortunate circumstances, they could just be unfortunate. They could be subject to a crime and maybe be, paralyzed or crippled or something that obviously wasn't their fault. But whatever flows from that also becomes your problem. Next slide. And then, as I said, most people think, well, if I have my spouse on my deed, doesn't that mean, Attorney Collins, that I can control that particular property? No, it means only what I described to you. That when you die, your spouse will receive your 1/2 interest. Having someone on as a joint tenant does not give the joint tenant the right to execute documents. So if your spouse unfortunately develops dementia, while you still are 2 on joint tenants, that spouse may be forced into a conservatorship downtown Los Angeles to be able to borrow money on your property, to be able to sell it. This often happens when someone, let's say a couple that has lived in a home for many years, they had a joint tenancy, one of them does develop dementia, what we call well spouse decides, okay, now it's time for us to move. I need for, us to go into a care kind of community, and I want to move my equity out of here to a nice, place in the desert or whatever, and they want to go through a transaction. They cannot sell the property. Both joint tenants must be competent at a time when their signatures have to go on a legal document. So, understand that by putting people on as joint tenants, there is substantial risk. Go to the next slide, please. So when spouses hold property in joint tenancy, a court action may be required to sell or manage the property, borrow on it. Often people want to borrow on the property so they can stay in the property. They don't want to move. They want to just be able to access the equity in the property for long-term care needs. And the family will pay $25,000 or more in court fees, attorney's fees, in order to get access to that. And then there can be a possible contest between family members because somebody wants to be the conservator over you. Maybe someone else in the family thinks you're not qualified to be the conservator for your spouse, and they challenge you to that in a court of law. Now we're looking at $50,000, $75,000 of costs to fight in a probate court. Next slide. Myth number 4, naming my child as beneficiary on my property, life insurance policy, and financial accounts is the best way to protect them. How many people think that? That if I just put my son's or daughter's name on the deed, like I mentioned before, or as a beneficiary of your life insurance. So in the case of a deed, remember I said, once you put someone's name on it, you are no longer the sole owner of the property. Next slide, please. I'm sorry. You must get their permission to sell, refinance, or use the property. Okay, so I had a situation where my client wanted to move to Las Vegas, and they wanted to sell their house here in Los Angeles and move to Las Vegas. But unfortunately, they had put their daughter's name on their deed because they wanted their daughter to get it at their death. Well, daughter did not want Mama moving to Las Vegas. She just put her foot down and said, you're not moving. I will not sign the deed to sell this property. Yeah. So remember, when you put someone's name on your deed, they are now part owner, and you will need their permission in order for you to deal with your property from that point forward, whether it's selling it, refinancing, or any of those things. There's also a possible big increase in property or capital gains taxes when we place someone on our property. So every transaction that happens, whether it's a sale or refinance, the county assessor's office has the opportunity to reassess our property. So it's not something done lightly. Don't think, oh yeah, I can go to the notary and I can add my daughter's name. And what it also will mean for your child at a later date is that they will probably be subjected to capital gains taxes on the property after your death. So you don't want to do that. Next slide. Myth number 5, I can make an estate plan using online sources or go to a non-attorney. How many people believe that? Yeah, unfortunately, you're definitely right. Quite a few people believe that. They believe the 599 trust. You see those placards on the telephone poles, 599 trust. Well, what those are basically insurance companies that are providing non-legal services. I mean, they're not lawyers, so they don't, I don't have a license to practice law. In fact, they're committing a felony. In the state of California, if you perform legal services and you're not a licensed attorney, it is a felony. But they do it. You see the placards all over the place. These little seminars they have here and there. People think, oh, wow, that's a good deal. That's a good deal, $599. And they owe $1 million worth of property, but they want to protect it with $599, okay? Well, you will never talk to an attorney. You will never meet an attorney. You will never get legal advice at all. You'll have someone that has an insurance license that will come in and prepare something, and then they'll bring it back to you. It's about, 20 pages. There's so many dangers in it, I'm not going to go into any great detail. But I will just tell you that after they've done that, they come back to you to try to sell you an annuity. And that is the reason they offer the $599 services. It is not to actually perform legal services to protect you. It is to actually get your confidence. There's psychological reasons why once we let someone in our home, because these people come to our houses, you don't go to an office, and you let someone into your home, that you're more likely to get them to do business with you in other ways. So people pay big money for a C-grade annuity, and all they have left is a $599 trust. All kinds of, strange and weird things happen with those trusts. I have people whose children are disabled, people whose children are on Medi-Cal and SSI and SDI and all this, and they put them in a trust like they're normal. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with being disabled, but someone on government benefits has to be planned for differently than someone that isn't, or they will lose their government benefits. So please never do that. Never use a non-attorney. If you value who you are as a person, your life, your security, and that which you have built through hard work and sacrifice, or who you may have inherited, as I have from 2 generations before me, then please be confident that you're going to have protection at a time in the future, and the only way you can is through a licensed attorney. Let's go to the truth of that. Next slide. So many necessary agreements of ingredients that of a do-it-yourself or paralegal trust don't have, and one of those very important parts is funding. So a trust is a great document, but it's just a piece of paper until it owns something. So you make a trust and you never fund it, meaning you never actually put anything in its name, then it controls nothing. So what do we have to, number one, put in its name? Our real property. How's that? We just make a deed. It's not a complicated process, but you have to have the trust prepared, and then you make a deed from you as an individual to you as a trustee of your trust, and now your property is protected from probate. And every other thing that's of value to you, life insurance contracts, financial accounts, are things that we would place in trust. The only thing we don't generally place in trust is retirement accounts, because there's very special rules related to retirement accounts. Otherwise, almost everything else is placed in trust, even down to our timeshares. Okay? And of course, when you do it yourself, who can you go to when you have questions? Who can you rely on when you become ill or needy and your family needs someone that they can count on? You, a paralegal, an online service. So it's very important to understand what you're paying for and what you're likely to get. These 599 trust mills, they're called trust mills. What happens over time, they violate too many laws, and the state attorney general's office comes and closes them down, and the 800 number that you have goes dead. And then after a number of years, they roll back around. Most of them are out in Orange County for whatever reason, but they're out there. Next slide. I also want to really warn people about Prop 19. And Prop 19 was something we voted for. We voted for this about 4 years ago, even before that, before the pandemic. Prop 19 was a proposition to change the way that our property is assessed upon our death. It used to be that we could give away up to $1 million worth of assessed value of real estate to our child with no change in the property taxes on that property. This is an extremely valuable thing that we voted so unknowingly to change. And what is assessed value? That means this building could be assessed for $200,000. Now, we all know it's worth way more than that, but assessed value is based on what you paid for it many, 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 many years ago. And from that point, because of Prop 13, is a very tight limit on how much can be changed on that, increase year by year. I have a 3-unit property on 2 lots in Watts. I pay $1,200 a year in assessments on that property taxes. I have another house, residential property in a nice neighborhood. I pay $600 a year. Now, a new person buying that property would pay over $10,000 a year in property taxes. So you can see how valuable this is. It means the difference as to whether or not your family will be able to keep the property that you left behind. Now the rules have entirely changed. There's no more coverage based on assessed value, where I had people with commercial property, residential property, income property, that altogether was only worth $1 million in assessed value. They could give all of those pieces of property away without any change in assessment. Now it's limited to your home that you reside in. Home cannot be worth more than $1 million, which for us, many of us, is more than what our home, is worth more. and your child must live in the property. Yeah, in order to keep the tax assessment. So please be aware that the rules have changed, that you need to be very concerned about it when you do your planning. Is there someone in the family that you know will value the property, want it? Is there a way to have your value of your assets divided between family members that makes more sense than, I have parents that have put 12 people divided amongst grandchildren and so forth, so on. That property will be sold. It will never stay in the family because the assessments are going to go up, and often family members can't keep it, can't even rent it profitably. So please make sure you're dealing with an attorney, a licensed member of the bar, someone who has malpractice insurance, has something to lose should they make a mistake. Paralegals and others don't have anything to lose. Next slide. So I'm just going to say I've gone over it on the column to the right. Those are the rules now. Only parents and children can keep the low property tax rates. Only the primary residence if the child lives there. All other properties, commercial properties, second homes, will now all be reassessed. So we have to be mindful of that when we make our planning. Next slide. I'm going to just skip this one. This is really more for business owners, but a trust and an LLC are something that is extremely valuable for people who have income property. LLC is an asset protection vehicle, an entity, so everyone that owns rental real estate should have that property in an LLC to protect them from the liability that might come from that. Think about all these people in the Eaton and the Palisades fires that were renting property, okay? 50% of the residents were renting these properties. They didn't own it. And these owners could be potentially liable for people's deaths that occurred on these properties and so many other things. So we never know when something might happen. But we would want to protect our other assets, our home, our bank accounts, our retirement accounts, and so forth, by having an LLC if we have a business or, and that business could be rental income property. A living trust is like your quarterback. While the LLC is valuable for protecting us, the quarterback has to be there to make sure that everything goes as planned. Okay, so the trust is the first thing we want, an LLC secondary. Next slide. Next slide. Oh, it's the last one. There are no more slides. We were missing something because it was supposed to be some other slides. Okay. Anyway, let me just say that everyone here today has this package. I will bring it to your attention again. And on this package, on the second page, I have dates of our next event. It is on tomorrow. And actually, someone here tonight has already registered for that event. Now, this is not going to be what you saw this evening. It's going to be totally different. We call it the Bill and Mary story. So it's going to be about a married couple and what they did right and what they did wrong. And the lessons you will learn will apply to single people, married people, everyone. And then we have one in April and May and June, all through the end of the year. These are at our law office right on Manchester Boulevard, west of Crenshaw Boulevard, between Crenshaw and Prairie. We have free public parking. And any of those of you who decide to become our client because of this wonderful lady, Ms. Sherrill, and McQuay Memorial, are going to get a $500 discount on their services. So bring that coupon with you when you come. And so I don't know. How can you take advantage? I see some questions. How can you take advantage of the $500 voucher for attending this meeting? Not really, okay? You need to go to either our on-demand webinar that's online, or you need to come to a live event in our office. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're presenting tonight, okay? It does not describe in full the services that we provide for people, the benefits. So unfortunately, no, you won't get a $500 discount just because you came and got this. You do need to have another level of education. Are there some other questions? I saw them over here on the side for a minute. I wanted to answer them. Okay. Let's open it up to the audience. Does anyone have questions tonight?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I've heard of, I don't know how true this is, but I've heard of people having their property inside of an LLC and having the LLC in the trust, and it wasn't real property.
Okay. We don't ever put, okay, I'm gonna ask a question first so that people online would hopefully heard it. What was asked was that some people have an LLC and they put it inside the trust. It's really assigned to the trust, but kind of same, and it's not rental property. I'm assuming that it's a residence, a person's residence, okay. In the case of a person's residence, the possibility of any kind of lawsuit related to that property is very small. We live there. We know what's going on there. We see, things that are dangerous, we take care of them. When we rent property, that's not the case, okay? We don't live there. We don't know what's going on there. People come and go. Things happen, okay? You're thought of as a deep pocket, the owner of the property. So the risk of you being sued and there being loss is extremely high with a piece of rental property versus your own primary residence. We all have insurance, homeowners insurance. So unfortunately, if someone were to slip and fall on our property, it is going to be covered by insurance. And that's true of rental property. We have the same kind of insurance. But the kind of possibility for tragedy is much greater at a rental property than is our single-family home. So when we use LLCs, it's to protect all of our other assets from the danger that comes from a piece of rental property, okay? And so that's why we do it. We put it in an LLC, and it doesn't allow any liability from that property to go beyond the LLC into our home's value or our investments or our bank accounts. It's capsulized within the LLC. Now, they might be able to get the property that's in the LLC, but they will not get your home, your retirement accounts, your private money, or other properties you might own. Okay, so that's why we use LLCs, as we use it to protect our personal assets from business liability. And most of us, if we're doing business, should have it in a corporation, like my law practice is in a professional corporation. My office building that I have my law practice is in an LLC. So this is the way that we protect our personal assets from business liability. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
There's like two types of trust, right? Revocable and irrevocable,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So you could put your you can set up in your trust for your property to stay within the family throughout generations, I guess. You can set it up a certain way.
The question is that could you set up in your in a trust that your property would stay in the family for generations? You can, but we have to be realistic, okay, about that. And what I mean by that is, property requires a lot of maintenance. People leave loans on property. They leave tenants sometimes in properties. They leave debts that have to be paid on a monthly, weekly, annual basis. So if there is some type of an understanding amongst family members that they will take responsibility for that and can take responsibility for that, yes, there's a possibility of having it extend beyond one generation. But I think what's more important is that, number one, we preserve the value of the property, and that's key. Okay, that's the key. I know all of us hold our real property near and dear to our hearts, and we want it to stay in the family, but property is just another asset. Okay, it's just another form of financial wealth. What's more important is that, to be honest with you, is to train our children about very, very basic things like Ms. Sherrill tried this evening, she started with, about financial literacy. It's much more important to establish that amongst our family members as to how do we gain wealth, how do we protect wealth. Because if we haven't done that, then the property that we may leave behind may fall through the cracks. And what I mean by that, either people don't take full responsibility for managing it, or there's disagreements as to that. What we really want to leave behind is that financial literacy, the values that we have. How did we get what we got? We got it through hard work, okay? We weren't on the internet trying to trick people into, sending us cash, okay? I'm just going to give you an example. My mother and grandmother told me from a young age, you always own, you never rent. So when I had a chance to buy a building for my law practice, I bought it because I had rented for 10 years in in office buildings. As of today, all of the attorneys that I came out of law school around the same time, I am the only one that I know of that owns their office building. Everybody went downtown and to Beverly Hills and Century City and rented. And now that they're at a stage in their lives where they could utilize the rent from an office that they own, they have nothing. Those are the kind of really important things that we need to pass on. Okay, we need to pass on those kinds of things to our family. That we don't put our cell phone bill ahead of our mortgage or our car payment. Okay, that we have a budget, that we learn to save, that we learn to tithe, that we know the value of those things and the importance of those things. And if you have done that with your family and you have provided for a living trust and you've done it in mind with all those things that I just mentioned to you today, like the fact that Prop 19 is going to cause a major reassessment of the property taxes, then you'll make a plan that will serve your family long term. But saying that you want something to stay in generations may not be the best way to benefit your family. Wouldn't it be better if you had a $500,000 house to give $125,000 college scholarships for your 4 grandchildren so that they all could, become college educated and go on to support themselves and their families, versus trying to keep a house which, is a money pit in reality, a single-family home. Everyone has different goals, and obviously you want to have those goals honored in your plan. And many parents do believe that leaving the property to a specific child or children, is the best way to handle it. But it needs to be taken in, consideration of the true goals you have for your family going forward. Having a static piece of real estate may not be the best thing for your family going forward. How many people can live there? We don't have the European manner of living where, generations live in one house. Unfortunately, that does happen in some cases, but not as often as we may like. There are 2 kinds of trust. You mentioned that. There's irrevocable trust and there's revocable trust. The type of trust I'm talking about are revocable. We always want to have an option to change our trust. We change our minds, our families change, our assets change. We always want to be able to go back and revisit our documents. People pass away, bad things happen, that we need to reevaluate and change our documents. Irrevocable trusts are primarily used to provide asset protection to avoid estate tax. Okay, so right now we can give away $13,990,000 tax-free to anyone. If it's not your spouse, giving away more than $13 million will expose your estate to estate tax, which can be as high as 40%. And we can use irrevocable planning to avoid that. So it's really for people who have what we call a taxable estate. Very few Americans have a taxable estate. All right, so I hope that everyone here, what you heard tonight is at least something that makes you think about what I have or haven't done. Please, I will tell you, in my experience, I have never had a client who made their trust and then passed away the next week. Never, ever, okay? So please, don't be afraid of that. Do it now. Do it when your children know what you're doing so that they can be educated, so you can pass it down, a legacy of planning, okay, versus you dragging them through a probate process, okay? So I look forward to seeing you, having you come through our on-demand. For those of you with grandparents or elderly people, that's the greatest way to bring this to their knowledge. Take your laptop over grandma's house and play the on-demand webinar, and then you and grandma are entitled to come in and have a free consultation with me, okay? Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, McCoy Memorial.
Let's give her another hand. Great job. Well, that concludes our presentation. We went over just a little, and we're going to close in prayer. Dr. Brown, will you close us out in prayer? And thank you, online participants, as well.
Your future, your family. Plan today. Life is
Tremendous. Let's pray. Lord God, we just thank you for this time of coming together, Lord. We just thank you for such an enlightenment time, eye-opening to get our financial affairs in order. We thank you for our speakers tonight. As we leave this place, we ask for traveling grace, journey, and mercies, and angels of protection. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
That was really, really good.